Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful. My name is Ibrahim Hooper. I'm National Communications Director with the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Thank you for coming today. I just wanted to go through quickly the format of today's news conference. Our first speaker will be Nihad Awad, Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. He'll discuss Muslim Voter Registration Day. Then will be Dr. Mohamed Nimer of CAIR's American Muslim Research Center. He'll discuss the Muslim Opinion Survey. And then will come various speakers under the umbrella of Muslim Women for America. And so first of all, I'd like to introduce Nihad Awad, Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Muslims are, or soon will be, the second largest community in the United States. Their increasing numbers may make them an emerging voice on the political scene. Muslims should offer Islamic viewpoints reflecting their views on the importance of promoting family values, preventing crime, and combating drug abuse, and encouraging other worthwhile societal goals. As the results of CAIR's survey on American Muslim social and political opinions demonstrate, Muslims are also deeply concerned about promoting civil rights and social justice. It is for these reasons that CAIR is today announcing its coordination of the American Muslim Voter Registration Day on Friday, September 13th. As part of this effort, CAIR is asking Muslim communities around America to do the following: form local voter registration committees. Second, contact voter registration offices to gather information about local regulations. We have contacted many counties around the country, and some of them have brochures like this, even in different languages. I'll show you one here. It's called كيف تنتخب في مقاطعة Cook County, which means in English, how to vote in Cook County, Illinois. We appreciate that many counties have these kind of brochures in different languages to help community members with this process of the election. Third, on September 13th, we asked that voter registration tables be set up in local mosques, Islamic centers, and Muslim-owned stores and businesses. Fourth, we ask Muslim registrars to record the names of those who register. And we also ask local communities to invite competing candidates to speak and answer questions following the Friday prayers that Muslims held every week, and also at other Muslim activities. We also have to remind our community religious centers that they cannot endorse political candidates because they are non-profit organizations. However, they can educate their voters by inviting competing candidates to discuss issues. On election day, November 4th, we ask activists to encourage a strong Muslim turnout and to conduct exit polling to gauge voting behavior. If every Muslim does his or her share in this effort, the Islamic viewpoint on issues of importance to the American public will receive the consideration it deserves. The bottom line, we would like our communities to have 100% voter registration and hopefully 100% turnout. Thank you.
And I forgot to mention that at the end of all of the speeches, we'll have the question and answer period. So if you have questions, save them, please, till the end. Next up will be Dr. Mohamed Nimer, the director of CAIR's American Muslim Research Center. He will explain some of the results of the American Muslim Opinion Survey that CAIR and ARC conducted recently.
Thank you, Ibrahim. This is the first opinion poll dealing with a Muslim constituency in a systematic and methodical fashion. The survey offers a profile of the membership of one major Muslim organization in America. As such, this study may very well become a base for measuring change in Muslim public opinion. The survey questionnaire consisted of 48 questions, mostly dealing with domestic issues. The format was basically closed-ended. Some questions of critical importance were left open-ended to allow unstructured responses. There are inherent difficulties in measuring American Muslim public opinion. Few databases are available from which to select a random sample. Also, some members of the community have in the past shunned politics and public debate. By focusing on a systematically developed membership base, this survey sheds some light on where Muslims stand on the issues. Respondents to this survey consist of telephone entries selected randomly from the membership database of the Islamic Society of North America, better known by its acronym ISNA. ISNA is one of the largest multi-ethnic immigrant and basically Muslim practicing organizations in the United States. The profile and views expressed by this sampled population may represent this segment of the American Muslim community. The telephone interviews were conducted by an independent polling company, the John Zogby Group International at Hartford, New York. New Hartford, New York. Calls were made in the period of July 18th to 22, resulting in 259 completed answer sheets. The poll carries a margin of sampling error of plus or minus 6%. Let me now give you some highlights on the profile of this sample. About 30% belong to the 18 to 29 age group. 44% belong to the 30 to 49 age group. 68% are college graduate. You can compare this to the national average of 14%. About 50% are white-collar professionals. 41% have a family income of $30,000 to $75,000. 73% are married and 71% have children. 19% attend mosques daily, 59% weekly. About 50% originate from the Indian subcontinent, that is basically the countries of India and Pakistan. 25% from Arab countries. Less than 10% originate from Africa. More than two-thirds, a very surprising finding, two-thirds of the sampled population is registered to vote. In terms of party affiliation, Muslims are almost evenly divided between Democrats, Republicans, and independents, or other or non-party preference. About 12%, a very high, much higher than the national average, are not really sure how they registered. So what we have here basically is a young, professional, highly educated, middle-class members of the community, family-oriented, religiously observant, immigrant, politically aware, and involved. Let's now see how they stand on the issues. First, we asked them about how they feel on the issue of prayer in public schools. You know that Muslims have to pray about 5 times a day. Muslims feel very passionately about this issue. We asked them which comes closer to a view on the issue of prayer in public schools. 3% said they favor a teacher-led prayer. 10% said they would ban prayer in public school because of the problem with the diverse religions and the way people pray. 7% advocated other solution, yet 78%, an overwhelming majority, said that they would favor a voluntary prayer in a special room setting. Muslims are aware of the needs of their own children and of the diversity within the public school system. Respondents wish to honor both the desire to allow prayer and the requirement of not imposing it on children. That's why they came overwhelmingly in favor of voluntary type prayer. On abortion, we asked which comes closer to your view on abortion. Now, 10% said that they would generally allow it. On the other hand, 7% would not allow it at all. 35% would allow it, would not allow it except in the cases of rape, incest, or to save life. 36% would allow it only to save life. 7% would allow it under less restrictive conditions. Now, compared to the national average, this group is very conservative on this issue. We asked about welfare, the budget, and society's obligation to the poor. A majority of 63% would favor a tax increase on the wealthy to meet the needs of the poor. However, a large segment of 39% would want to work within society's needs. So you've got, when we asked them, would you favor increase in taxes on the wealthy to meet society's obligation to the poor? 63% said yes. 30% said no. So you have a group that would weigh in favor of social justice as a prime value on this issue. On immigration, of course, this wasn't a very difficult question for them since most of them are themselves immigrant. 61% said that they would oppose or strongly oppose reducing the level of legal immigration. On civil rights, we asked, have you ever felt discriminated against because of your religion, because of your religious background anywhere in the United States? 41% said yes. 58% said no. To examine this issue in more detail, we asked, have you ever discussed any matter pertaining to religious freedom and religious practice with your employer or with your kid's teacher? 61% said yes, they have. And when we asked them to list the issues that they have discussed, and this was an open-ended question, they gave us the following results. About 73% of the respondents, that's about 135 out of 259 of the sample, said that these issues were the religious accommodation type issues, issues dealing with prayer, holidays, diet, dress, fasting, the major Muslim practices and the need to accommodate it in the public domain. Now, 21% said that they discussed issues dealing with promoting increased understanding of Islam. Some even said that they were extremely bothered by the way in some schools Islam is represented in textbooks. And this was a major issue of discussion. So where does that put this sample in terms of the American political spectrum? More Muslims identify with the Democratic Party and its constituencies. That's evidenced in the slightly more percentage affiliating with the Democratic Party, and also with the view that people expressed about which party is more inclusive and more responsive to minority religions. Putting that into a question yielded the following results. 42% said that the Democratic Party is more responsive than other parties on the issue of minority religions. In contrast, only 11% said that the Republican Party is more inclusive. Yet, trying to examine their affinities, we found that a large percentage of the sample would identify with the religious segment of American society. We asked, in your view, which of the following Americans are more responsive to religious minority rights? 31% said that practicing Christians were more responsive. 12% said non-practicing Christians. 28% said that neither segment of society was more responsive than the other. So you see Muslims swinging here and there on issues of social justice and welfare, immigration. They would take the Democratic camp on issues of abortion, the need to pray in public schools. They would feel much more conservatively. They would like to build bridges with the religious segments of society, but still they think that the Democratic Party, which is much more liberal and secularized, is still more inclusive of minority religion, and they are a constituency of that grouping. So that always put Muslims on the swing vote side of the political spectrum. But no matter how Muslim leaders draw their alliances and stake out their positions, they face a formidable task of mobilizing their own constituency. Thank you very much.
The next speaker will be Anisa Abdel Fattah of Muslim Women for America.
Good morning. Since the first Muslims embarked upon America's shores as captured slaves, whose blood, sweat, and tears fertilized the soil of this country, Muslims have been contributing to America. Over the past 100 years, due to legal immigration, the numbers of Muslims in America has steadily increased. Through the movements of Elijah Muhammad and his son Warith Muhammad, and the subsequent conversion of millions of Americans to the religion of Islam, our numbers have continued to increase while our status in America is in decline. This reduced social political status contrasts sharply the reality that Muslim Americans are by and large a peaceful, productive, and tax-paying community that has almost no political representation. As a result of our lack of political representation, we have over the years been adversely affected by a campaign of fear and hatred that has been directed towards Islam and Muslims. And it has manifested itself as increased discrimination and even open violence, mostly against Muslim women and children. Muslims in America can no longer pay the price of political apathy and passivity. It is no longer an expense that we can afford. As Muslim women, we have borne a disproportionate amount of the hatred and violence that has been aimed at Muslim Americans. Our unique dress makes us open targets for those who have succumbed to the negative influences of religious bias and intolerance. These acts of hatred and violence have not only compromised the rights of Muslim women to peacefully and openly express our religious beliefs, they have also threatened the right of every American to choose his or her own faith and to live according to the tenets of their faith, freely and openly. Another result of our unwillingness to collectively participate in the political processes and our lack of political representation in this country was the mass genocide of hundreds of thousands of Muslims in Bosnia and the maiming and raping of Muslim women and girls simply because they were Muslim. We will never forget Bosnia. And as women, we will demand that the world remember and address the day the Srebrenica fell and thousands of Muslim men were killed while the world stood silent, deliberating on which lives were worthy to be saved and who would defend them. Muslim American women are also interested in the domestic policies of the United States of America. Education, health care, taxation, Social Security, and Medicare, excuse me, are all issues that affect the quality of our lives and the futures of our children. The recent Beijing conference was also an incentive for Muslim American women to organize and become politically active. In Beijing, we learned that when you refuse to define yourselves, others will define you and seek to shape your destiny. We learned in Beijing that there must be a political voice that is representative of Muslim women and that is included in the international dialogues that are transforming the world's societies. Some 1,400 years ago in Mecca, a man named Mohamed, who was the son of Abdullah, received what we believe was divine revelation from God. We know this revelation as the Quran. In the Quran, God guides the Muslims to enjoin what is right and to forbid what is evil. He taught his prophet to speak the truth without ambiguity, but not to seek to dispose of people's affairs. We accept this guidance from God and resolve ourselves to these same principles. Our goal is not to dispose of America's affairs, but rather to share our political perspectives as Muslim women with the hope that we might make a positive contribution to our country that will benefit every American. It has been a long journey for Muslim women from the deserts of Arabia some 1,400 years ago to this podium today. On this journey, our fortunes have varied. We have gone from the honored status bestowed upon us by Islam to the oppressive confines of culturalisms that sought to rob us of our rights and our freedoms. Today, we have reclaimed and embraced our tradition as inherited from the mothers of our faith, traditions of community activism, political activism, and scholarship, as well as serving as wives and mothers. I am pleased to announce today the formation of Muslim Women for America, a grassroots organization whose goal is to galvanize Muslim women into a united voting bloc who will cast its votes in November in support of the rights and interests of the Muslim American community, and we pray to the benefit of all Americans. Through voter registration, education, and mobilization, Muslim American women hope to bring our political perspectives to bear upon the American political processes in such a way that will ensure that Muslims are counted and recognized as viable contributors to our country and that our interests are represented in America's blueprint for its future. We want to thank those who prepared the way for us through their tireless and selfish efforts to bring Muslims in America to the political table. The Islamic Society of North America, the American Muslim Council, led by Mr. Abdurrahman Al-Amoudi, and the Council on American-Islamic Relations. These were the pioneers of our efforts today, and we thank them and all of our endorsers for their support. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Sharefa al-Khateeb, Vice President of the North American Council for Muslim Women.
Today is indeed an historic day for Muslim women in America. Today marks the creation of a new organization by and for Muslim women, which has as its focus the political involvement and activity of Muslim women. The word political has many meanings and many contexts, and this new organization, Muslim Women for America, intends to help women be aware of and participate in all of its meanings. It will be a catalyst for political awareness, involvement, and running for office by Muslim women. It will seek to analyze the political positions of existing candidates from an Islamic perspective and provide this analysis to Muslim women and to the community at large. The North American Council for Muslim Women, as the largest independent Muslim women's organization in America, recognizes the urgent need for this focus that has not taken place in the existing organizations and welcomes this type of necessary activity. There is a clear message being given to Muslim women today, which is, when it comes to politics, your vote is your voice. NESMU, North American Council for Muslim Women, is committed to Muslim women expressing their views, working in concert to develop lasting ideas and ideals, and acting upon them at all levels, from the home to the school, to the mosque, to the larger community, and to the halls of the state and national legislatures. NESMU recognizes that there is no public space where women should not be, and there is no public discussion that can succeed without the full input and active participation of women at every level of society. Our organization is committed to these ideals because they are Islamic ideals. Political rights for Muslim women are not a new idea. In fact, the first political state in the world to recognize and implement the voting rights of women was the multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious Islamic state of Medina in the 7th century. Women were asked to individually indicate whether or not they approved of their chosen leader by giving their individual allegiance to the Prophet Mohammed, peace be on him. Throughout the lifetime of the Prophet Mohammed, all people, women and men, were called to the central gathering place to discuss all ideas so as to inform their leaders before final decisions were taken, not after. The input of women was never confined to issues deemed particular to women in the Islamic period of Muslim history. This is our heritage as Muslim women, which we intend to regain. Muslim women must be aware, conversant with the issues, involved, and active in any society in which they live as part and parcel of being a good citizen. It is the right of Muslim women to be part of the open marketplace of ideas in our civil society, just as every other segment of American society has been. They have the right to think about the issues through their own perspective and make those views known to their elected representatives, just as all others have done. We applaud this move, we applaud this focus, and we applaud and welcome MWA.
Our next speaker is Mohamed Majid, with the Public Relations Director for the Islamic Foundation for America.
Good morning. I'd like to say that as Muslim men, we believe that Islam gives full rights to women to participate in all political affairs, and we are encouraging such organizations from our sisters that to participate in public affairs of our country. And I would like very much to encourage all Muslim organizations to give their support to such organization. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll have Mahdi Bray, Executive Director of the National Muslim Political Action Center.
In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful, it is indeed a wonderful and exciting time to be here. I'm delighted, I'm excited about the work of CAIR, about the work of Muslim Women for America, about Sister Sharefa's organization, and Muslims all over getting excited about this issue about voting. It's wonderful, wonderful. I want to even announce that we are following your lead, and here locally, we've established, starting next Saturday, at all the Safeways and the CVS pharmacies, national chain, voter registration tables. This is good work. And I'm very honored and I'm very happy to be here for many reasons, but number one is first, this Muslim Women for America movement dispels the notion that is often held by non-Muslims and regrettably some Muslims, that Muslim women are a passive, inactive group in our community. Nothing could be further from the truth. From the very inception of Islam and its prophet Mohamed, peace be upon him, the status of women was elevated, and women were an active, dynamic force in the Muslim community. And this initiative that Sister Anisa and her organization has embarked upon today represents and embodies that spirit of the dynamic activism and social involvement that is the legacy from the glorious and prophetic community in Islam. And we support you 100 times 100%, because we come from a religious tradition that says that men and women are the maintainers and the protectors and supporters, if you will, of one another. We are very excited about this because we know that this issue, even though this is the initiative for Muslim Women for America, this issue is not about gender. It's about genius. The genius to understand that the Creator holds us responsible for the conditions of society. And when these conditions are shaped by and prioritized by a political process that the enfranchisement interests, voting, takes place, then one vote is better than none, and two is certainly better than one. Again, it's not about gender, but it's about generating votes to promote the greatest good we can in our society for this generation and the generations to come. All we have to do is look at the social and moral maladies around us. We can see how important this is for all humanity. You see, there's nothing exclusive about the Muslim political agenda. Let me just take a few seconds to explain it to you. See, our political agenda is really, really simple. First, you see, we have a political boss. Our political boss is the Creator, and he is an equal opportunity employer who wants all of us to work for the greater good of this society. This is the moral and spiritual imperative that is the guiding political principle of a Muslim. This is important work that you've embarked upon. This work is now also important, but it's also very, very serious work. When you look at the annals of history as it relates to voting in America, we see that this right that we now take so cavalierly for granted is a right that has been laboriously laid out in struggle. If you look at right after the American Revolutionary War, the American white male who didn't own property had to struggle for the right to vote. If you look at the women's movement in this country, you'll find people like Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, and Ida B. Wells, and other women and men who came together to fight for the right for women to vote. And then if you look at the African American, you see that they paid both in property, limbs, and life for this right to vote. I can remember very vividly as a boy having my home firebombed in the southern regions of Virginia simply because my grandfather wanted to register people to vote. I can remember as a teenager how Anthony Lewis, who is now Congressman Lewis from Atlanta, was beaten bloodily there in Alabama simply because he was trying to work for a Voting Rights Act, and how we responded as youth and went to Montgomery and marched from Montgomery to Selma at the threats of terrorists in the woods with guns, the threats of bombs, simply to get the right to vote. So, Sister Anisa and other brothers and sisters, when you're out there, remind the people that there is a legacy of people who heard and answered the call for the greater good and went out and paid with their life, their blood, their sweat, and their tears to establish enfranchisement for all people, regardless of race, gender, or religion. And may I say to you, Sister Anisa, on a personal note, to quote the queen of talk show, you go, girl. You go. Don't let anybody stop you. Because remember one thing, if it's just, if it's right, and if it's true, Allah will bless it. And if Allah is for you, who can be against you? You see? And therefore, if you make one step, He'll make two. If you walk, He'll run to you. May Allah bless you, and may Allah help us all. Thank you.
And our final speaker today, before we take question and answers, is Sister Iesha Bray with Sisterhood in Action.
In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, I bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except God and God alone, and that Mohamed, 1400 years ago, is his last prophet and messenger. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. There's so many wonderful speakers have spoken before me and given exactly and gotten right down to the point of the reason why we're here. And the reason why we're here is for the legacy that Muslim women have followed, and we're going ahead and we're going to follow with that tradition to encourage Muslim women to vote, that we encourage women, period, of any religion, any race, and any creed, to encourage us in this, to join us in this, and to support us in this. And we also encourage men as well, of any religion, race, or creed, to follow us in this, to support us in this, because it is our right. And very simply, subhanallah, and thank you, Anisa, and everyone who's supportive. Assalamu alaikum.
Sister, if you want to stay up here for the question and answer, I think everyone who spoke to make them more available. And could I just make an administrative note? Just an administrative note, if anyone wants to reach the Muslim Women for America, the number is 703-941-3057. And if anyone would like to reach CAIR, the number is 202-659-2247. Now we'll take any questions that anyone might have. Yes?
You spoke about speakers from Congress or the Senate or the administration coming to speak to you on the issues. Have you got anyone lined up at this time for the future?
Sister Anisa?
No.
Again, Muslims being in politics is not new to the community. So I know that in many cities, Muslims have already registered to vote, have already invited many candidates on the local level to bring their views to the attention of Muslims. So I'm aware of many cities and states where Muslims have done that. As far as what will take place from now on, we're still, we just started today. The voter registration has been going on, but as far as lining up speakers from now till November 3rd, that's still yet to come.
Any other questions?
You said that the Muslims will be the second largest religious group by the turn of the century. Who is that now? Who is the second largest group now?
Well, I didn't say that. And actually, according to some published data, Muslims may very well be in that position right now. According to some data, there are about 6 million Muslims in the United States, or 5 million. The Jewish community, which is believed to be the second largest religious community, according to data from Jewish sources, are at about 4.1 million. Although the widely distributed figure is about 6 million in the press.
And just a note on that, it's notoriously difficult to quantify the Muslim community because of its diversity. We have many different segments in the Muslim community, and it's very difficult to get hard numbers on the entire community. And that there are projects underway to get those kinds of hard numbers. Another.
Anisa, could you tell us how to spell your name and tell us whether your organization plans to endorse a presidential candidate?
My name is spelled A-N-I. My name is spelled A-N-I-S-A. The last name is capital A, B like in boy, D like in David, space, capital E-L, space, capital F like in Frank, A-T-T-A-H. And yes, sometimes prior to the actual election, we hope to make an endorsement.
Any idea which way you're leaning?
No. But we are conducting surveys. We have plans to establish booths at the ISNA convention, which is supposed to take place over Labor Day weekend. They're expecting from roughly around 7,000 people. We plan to have a booth at the National Islamic Conference that's taking place in White Plains, New York, that same weekend. And we are circulating a survey where we are polling Muslim women to find out what issues are important to them and what positions they take on those issues. And based on that and our analysis of the platforms of the various candidates, we hope to make an endorsement sometime prior to the election.
Got one note on, we asked that question about who would they vote for in our survey, and that was back in July 20th. About 42% said they would vote for President Clinton, 22% said they would vote for Dole, and 10% said they would vote for Perot. You have to remember that period, in just right before the survey, President Clinton urged the public not to rush to judgment on the TWA tragedy. Some news media started speculating about some kind of Muslim connection to that incident.
Can I say something briefly? Although we support this survey that CAIR issued today, we take exception to some of the numbers and the representations. The position of MWA is that we are too early in the game to say that Muslim voters are going to vote one way or another. And we don't want to give the impression that these small samples are truly representative of all Muslims in the United States. So hopefully, I'm hoping that the media will be reserved in the use of these numbers, particularly these numbers that indicate that 10% of Muslim voters are African American and that the majority are immigrants. That simply is not the case. And as I say again, I think it's just too soon in the game to tell how Muslim voters are going to vote.
I have to make this correction. There was no such data as 10% of voters are African American. Talking about the sample, less than 10% of the membership base of ISNA is African American.
Right, but I'm saying it's not representative.
No, and I said that. It's not representative of all the communities, only one national grouping.
Any other questions? Yes.
As you all know, the Jewish community does tend to work closely with both of the political parties, but at least according to the National Jewish Press, at the end, about 85% of American Jews apparently voted for President Clinton last time, and I've heard estimates in the media that about 90% will vote for Clinton this time. Given that way of making your community politically significant, making candidates begin to consider your issues, do you plan some kind of coordination at the very end in hopes that your different groups may be able to agree on one candidate to endorse, or how do you plan to cope with this?
I think for CAIR, we really don't endorse candidates. We promote social and political activism in general, in a generic sense. So that would, I believe, be up to other groups to actually endorse candidates. And as Brother Nihad mentioned earlier, mosques themselves or Islamic centers probably cannot also tell people you should vote for this person or that person just because of their tax-exempt status.
I think it's important. I see where Mr. Richard Carter's question is gearing, that in order to be considered in America, you have to have your vote directed in one direction so that people take count of you. And I believe the community at one point of time their names and their votes will be counted in one direction, because they will vote wherever their interest lies. CAIR, as a nonprofit organization, as well as the Islamic centers and mosques, as nonprofit organizations, they cannot violate their nonprofit status to endorse a candidate per se. But there are Muslim political action committees, such as maybe Muslim Women for America. They might tell us this is the candidate that serves our community. And these views will be broadcast to the community to help the community decide on the candidate that better will serve their interest.
How will you broadcast these views? What is the mechanism that you can do this to get the word around?
On our network, we have close to 1,500 mosques, and we will help political action committees utilize our database to inform our audience on their views without CAIR taking that particular position.
And if I could add also, I think that from a tactical position that Muslims recognize the growing trend that's in America, that partisan politics is with us, but people begin more and more to vote the issue. And I think that you'll find that there are some Muslim organizations, ours included, that we don't take a partisan position, we take an issue-oriented position. And that time we try to focus on the candidate that has the best record and speaks to the issues that are most important to our particular community. So I would think that you would find, again, that we're in sync with what's happening in the growing trend in America to not to be as partisan as it used to be. It used to be if your mother and father were a Democrat, you were a Democrat, you know, and likewise. But that doesn't seem to be the American trend anymore. Thank you.
Yes. My question is for Anisa. Do you intend to register women to vote, Muslim women to vote, or try and create a voting bloc?
Okay, well, we're approaching this thing in 3 different directions. We're hoping to encourage and assist Muslim women and facilitate them in getting registered to vote. That's the priority. Second, we're hoping to educate Muslim women on various issues and platforms of the candidates to assist them in making an intelligent decision in November. And finally, we hope to mobilize Muslim women by assisting them to get to the polls by providing transportation and child care through the various masajid around the United States.
Follow up. Well, what I meant in speaking of a block is, do you expect to have like a particular number of women that will be, will expect to vote, the way that you endorse, or?
Well, all the women that we're registering, we're keeping a ledger of those registered voters, so we know and have some idea of what our numbers are going to be. And then through the education process, we hope to be very representative of their ideas, but we expect that their positions will change from the time that they register to vote through the time that they are provided with current and up-to-date information on the various platforms and profiles of the candidates. So we expect that going into the election day, that due to our educational efforts, that Muslim women will galvanize their vote and that they will vote as one bloc.
Another question from Mr. Nimer, if I may. At the conclusion of your remarks, you said that this would be a group that it would, I'm paraphrasing you, I'm not quoting you, it would be difficult to make cohesive because of the varying opinions on social issues and on financial type issues. Could you elaborate on that?
I didn't suggest that it is difficult to make it cohesive. I suggested that it might very well emerge as a block of swing voters. When the hotly felt issue in the American Muslim community has to deal with civil rights, and the liberals and the Democrats in general speak and address these issues, Muslims might go into that direction. When issues of religious practice and religious tolerance of religious observant people and other conservative issues are high, then Muslims might go with the candidates who would address these issues.
I think we'll conclude at that point. I'm sure any of the participants will be available for individual interviews at the end of the news conference. And again, thank you for coming, and see you next time. Thank you. Nihad, do you have a card? The old address. Oh, did you get the new address? The six automatically rolls over. You'd have to ask her. Okay. You got a copy of ours? I can tell I vote now. We have it on. First, we have to make the decision whether that's okay. Charging back to the general public, but we might be able to. Oh. Ask for charging, but I think technically among the so we've started this north and southeast of the United States and advocate that this goes to jail and I think also the election is a very important aspect, because I see one of the things that's really disturbing about the dilution of the African American vote is that actually one of them when they come out, they automatically get their right to vote. This is also it varies from state to state. The District of Columbia, among other states, actually said that if a person has done their time, then they should be able to vote. And it seems to me that take a man to prison, he goes to prison for punishment, not, I mean, as not for punishment, and then you tell him that he can supposed to rehabilitate his rights, but you deny him one of the basic tools of citizenship, which is the right to vote. So, it's very state to state, but it's a very important process, and it shouldn't be. People serve their time, should vote. That's the idea.